Good morning. Thanks for joining us. I am Jill, and this is Katrina, and here we are. This is episode 4 of the Strategic Pause, which has been a ton of fun, and we thought it would be a ton of fun. We'll just warn you, we are a little bit giddy, a little bit delirious. It is the end of a week. We've both had delightful weeks, but kind of tiring weeks, and so we may be mildly unhinged today. Which I don't know if that's different than any other day, but I guess we'll have to see. Maybe we just operate on a mildly unhinged, just our actual MO.
I think we should rename the podcast Mildly Unhinged.
Mildly Unhinged. That's actually beautiful. Or that could be my name of my book about irreverent parenting. Mildly Unhinged.
I like it.
I might put that in my signature line also. Anywho, today we are talking about actually not a mildly unhinged topic. So we'll see if we can make this topic mildly unhinged. But we are talking about preparing for the learning experience. So we've talked about how the both of us have positions and where we teach sessions, we facilitate sessions that are a little bit different in what's in the session. But we both are preparing for sessions on a regular basis. And so, Katrina, why don't you start with that today? What does it look like for you?
Excellent. Well, when we think about preparing, I think it's important to just first kind of frame that I do a lot of work with trainers in organizations. And you do a lot of work with leaders in organizations.
Good distinction.
Yeah. So when we're preparing training or facilitation, whatever we're labeling it, it's easy to think about heading into the space, the classroom, if you will. But I really believe that we've got to back the truck up.
A phrase I've never used in my life.
And I was prepared to use it today because we so often start with okay, what questions am I going to ask as a trainer, facilitator? What do I want them to do? What do I want them to experience in this space? And backing the truck up, we've got to go back to the organization and we've got to start there. And we've got to say what is it that we're trying to actually do?
Yeah.
And how do we want to connect that to the strategic objectives of the organization?
Yeah.
Whether it's training trainers, whether it's leadership, there is a larger goal at stake. And if we're really going to make impact with the work that we do and make the most of the investment that people make in us, we have to back the truck up to make that connection. And that's really where it starts. And I think, I don't know, in my experience, that gets missed so often.
Yeah.
Or minimized.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I would totally agree. I think less so now in my role, because my role now is I have larger contracts with organizations. So I'm with an organization a lot. So there is always kind of that is in the background, and we always start with a discovery. But especially in my past roles, they would just come to me and be like, okay, do a 2-hour communication training. And I'd be like, well, where do we want to go? What are we even with 2-hour communication training? They can't communicate, right? That was very typical and very normal. And to your point, having them back the truck up and saying, what do we want to get here? What goals are we not hitting because your people aren't XYZ? And it's easier for me now, I think, because to your point, I've had a lot of practice. But in the beginning, it felt very frustrating trying to get that bigger picture out there.
Yeah. And so once we have that picture, once we know, here are the things here's the gap we're trying to address.
Yeah.
Then I get really specific with behaviors. What are the things we want people to do so that they can be successful, whether that's training or leading or communicating or, cleaning the toilets.
Right.
What is it that we want them to do? And that those very specific things that we want them to do, that's where I begin creating and preparing my learning experience.
Yeah.
So then I can take each of those items and I get down to the detail of a task analysis. Like I want to see, yes, what are the tasks?
Yeah.
How do those get stepped out? So I can then pick an activity, or I actually use the term PAFR, presentation, application, feedback, and then review, reflection, retrieval.
Oh, goodness. I can't believe we haven't discussed about this before. Okay.
Yeah,
PAFR.
It's my thing.
Okay.
PAFR.
Okay.
So for each task that you do,
Mm-hmm.
you have a presentation, so how the information gets to your participant. Then you have application, which is how they practice that thing. Then you have feedback to the participant so that they know they practiced it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And then we add in review, reflection, and retrieval throughout our session so that we're reinforcing the learning, so that we're making sure learning lasts.
Right.
And
yeah,
there's my strategy. There you go. I just gave it away, just like that.
I love that. PAFR. That's an acronym I have not heard. And I can't believe I haven't heard it because we spend a solid amount of time together.
I made it up. It's mine. It's my IP.
I love that. I think, it's very similar to what I do. I just haven't named it. Which, why would I name it now? I'm just going to adopt your name, obviously. Now I will start talking about PAFR, and I'm sure Sachiko and Elizabeth, Beth, who work with me, will be like, who's PAFR?
PAFR?
Did you get a new dog?
Sounds like a smell. Where'd that PAFR come from?
Or like one of those drug commercials, like, take PAFR to alleviate your symptoms. Okay, we told you we were unhinged today. We were upfront about this.
Side effects may include impact, behavior change.
Okay, we need like a woman flying a kite with a dog and a grassy field in the background.
I can so see that. Like, because we've all seen it before, right? PAFR, talk to your learning consultant about that today.
This is going to be really hard to come back because this is so good.
I love that we never, like, we always know what we want to do, but we're never really sure where it's going to go.
Not once when we talked about this episode did a possible drug commercial come up. So, but we knew we wanted to laugh, and we knew we wanted to make up new words, and we knew we wanted to learn new things. And that has already happened within the few minutes we have been in this episode. So we can log off now.
Somebody's probably questioning themselves right now, thinking, why do I listen to this in the first place?
Or if you know us, you're not that surprised. Anyways, yes to all the things that you just said. I mean, I think I have a really similar process. I don't name it, but I do notice that if I feel very disjointed about something I'm planning or something I'm preparing, and I feel like it's just not hitting, sometimes I'll stop and I'll think, whoa. Like, I back the track up. I'll think about, like, okay, what behaviors are we trying to get? If there was one thing they could do differently, what would it be? And it's those things that really like recenter me. But I do have a tendency, my personality is to move fast, move quickly, probably move too fast. And so that is the way I can slow myself down, is by asking some of those same questions you just asked. In fact, this last week, I had a situation where we sent content for a whole session to a client, thinking it was a home run, right? Like it was going to be great and work. And it was clear from the response it wasn't a home run. And not in a bad way, like not in like there was nobody was mean about it or anything like that, but there was a lot of questions like, well, what about this and how are we going to do this? And I truly read that email and I was like, oh, I moved too fast. Like, and so we got on the phone with a client and asking questions like, okay, when they leave this session, what can they do differently in your opinion? What does success look like? And she had a great answer. And I was like, I didn't do enough of this discovery, right? Because you have a great answer. This is exactly it. We talked about the gaps, 2 months ago, and we talked about this longitudinal program. And so I went and I was able to totally redesign it, which was actually a lot of fun. And then sent it to her yesterday. And she's like, yeah, spot on. Like you hit the note. And the whole thing was truly just because I didn't slow us down. Like I didn't take enough strategic pauses. And we've had this conversation where, I remember in one of your sessions that you do with the book group, people were saying sometimes I get too caught up in all the research and I need to move forward. And I'm the opposite. Like I don't spend enough time there. I have to slow myself down. And usually when I don't hit the mark, it's because I haven't taken that time.
Yeah. I think that's not uncommon for you as a person and for you as an organization, or like organizationally as well.
Yeah.
And I think, on that research side and people taking more time on the research, I think sometimes they're doing the wrong research. They're
Yeah.
researching activities, they're researching,
Yes.
Methods for doing something when the research should really be in the organization. Because if we want to change something, we've got to know what's actually happening in the organization. Then we can make that tie, and then we can do the thing that I think so many of us as a industry are bad at, which is actually showing that we've made an impact. Right. Actually being able to say, hey, this is what you said, and this is why you said it, and here's what we did.
Right. Which is hard. It's something that I think has been hard. It's definitely not impossible, but it's not easy, and it takes a lot of effort, where it's not dollars, right? We're talking about human behavior that leads to maybe dollars, but I work with a lot of governments. You can't even, you're not measuring that in dollars. We're not selling apps or bagels or something. And so that's really complex to try to
Well, and I think we overcomplicate it. Thinking that it's got to be dollars, it's got to be these big things. And, maybe sometimes it's just the small change over time that leads to the bigger change. And if we measure those small changes, that incremental change, we are now actually able to show the impact and do it a little bit more easily.
Yeah, I love that, actually, measuring those small changes. I love that. Yeah. What does that look like for you? Like, what do those small changes look like?
Well, I'll give you an example. This isn't a perfect example, but it's a recent example. I worked with an association and I did just a 90-minute session. So this is fast in and out, on reflection. And I gave them one strategy for reflection that you can use as a change manager, as a leader, as a human. And it's three. Right. It's 3 minutes a day, 5 days a week, 15 minutes commitment. Right. And so I use, I don't want to call it a tool because it is a tool, but it's amazing. They create
amazing.
They can be. Absolutely. And so they create a commitment to a small change. So they had an option in using the actionable habit builder. They had an option to choose a commitment of, at the beginning of the day, instead of opening my email, I will reflect for 3 minutes using this formula that I gave them. Or another one was, at the end of the day, when I close my laptop, I can reflect for 3 minutes. So you're getting this idea. So it's like different times, instead of doing their thing, they're going to, reflect for 3 minutes. So they commit to one, and then I give them 28 days of digital coaching to support their behavior. So now they get a nudge when they've daily. Decided how often they want it and how they receive it, meaning email or text, and I support them. They can journal, they can check in, and I go, hey, you're doing it. And so now we've taken that training that they've experienced. We don't change much behavior in 90 minutes, and we're supporting it for 28 days.
Yeah.
And that's when the change begins to happen. And at the end, I can show where they started and where they ended. So now I have small impact.
I love that. And
so imagine we do that with leaders. Right, exactly. It's so manageable.
So manageable.
Right. And, one of the things that came up today as we were talking about it with the group in this 3-minute commitment is that, for some of them, once they start 3 minutes, that 3 minutes grows easily to 5.
Yeah.
Because it's getting started, right?
Yeah.
It's getting started. Getting started is always the hardest part. So, wow, we went from how do you prepare from the learning experience to how do you support the learning experience, which, but it's part of the preparation, right?
It is. Yeah. Thinking of the outcome. 100%.
Right. I believe it was Stephen Covey who might have said, begin with the end in mind. Somebody probably said it before him, but I know 7 Habits
is misattributed.
Yeah.
But we'll call
attributed to him. Yeah. Exactly.
We'll call it.
And today, Katrina said it. There you go. Somebody's going to attribute it to me somewhere, and people are going to be like, no.
See, a LinkedIn quote. Be that, and it's Katrina Kennedy. And you're going to get an email from Stephen Covey. People will be like, no.
Well, it would be his son, because Stephen Covey's dead. But
his people, right. His people.
His people. Oh my God, now we're talking about dead people? We are all over the place. So let's talk about structure.
Well, I was going to ask you, so when you go into a session, do you create an outline? Do you create notes? Is it all in your head? What is your guide when you go into something new? Or old?
Oh, goodness. I have a detailed spreadsheet down to the minute.
Okay.
That is broken down by activity that ties to the objective, which ties to the task that we want. Anyone who's been in T4T with me, the design side of it, they have seen my design template, and it is literally a spreadsheet that, here's the activity, and then here's the steps to that activity. Here's the estimated time that would take. And then I outlined the entire thing. Now, does that mean that I follow it completely?
Right.
We're flexible, and sometimes you have to change things up. But it is not in my head. I kept things in my head for a long time. It is not wise. It's too much pressure.
Yeah.
And, maybe with age, things don't stick quite as much as they used to.
You are young and spry. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's right. So what about you? What does yours look like?
It's not dissimilar, except for I don't use a spreadsheet. I use a Word doc. And I truly write out very often the words I want to say in my own voice. So, it will say, instead of and now I'm going to explain, it'll say, so this one time, and I will sometimes write out the story, but it's the same. I give it a time frame and I link it to an activity. And sometimes I'll write in alternate, if largely engaged group, move to the right. If not largely engaged group. And I usually, to your point, don't look at it. during my session. I mean, I have it there, right? It's if you watch me walk into a session, I will always have, like papers with me, like always. And I print out the slides. It's almost like they're like my emotional support as I go into something. But I don't really use them, but it helps me to write them out. The problem is, as I am building facilitator guides for other people, I find that I really have to change it because this is for Jill. There's nobody,
Right.
you could not look at this and understand what I wanted from you. So I have facilitator guides that I've written for some classes that are very, pretty formal and like outlined, but that is not what I use for myself. And then sometimes I'll actually put them in Chat GPT and I'll say, is there anything that doesn't connect? Or like, can you understand the flow of where I wanted to go? And that's actually been really interesting because sometimes Chat GPT will pop something out and say, actually, I don't really know how you connected this to this. And a couple of times it's really been something that I just didn't even think about. So that's just a kind of a new, and I don't always do that, especially if it's a class
Mm-hmm.
I've taught a million times. But if I'm developing something new or have a new activity that I want to incorporate, like sometimes I'll ask AI, like, do you understand this? And they give surprisingly reasonable feedback.
I like that you're framing it too. Like, do you understand this? Does this have flow? That I
Yeah.
think is a really powerful way to use it. Um, yeah, so there's the documenting beyond yourself. I
Hmm.
think that's so important. I probably default to something that I understand. Occasionally I hand things off or I get asked to design for others, and then I try to be really specific. I
Yeah.
don't encourage people to script, unless it
Right.
helps you. But like what I find, especially with trainers, is when we script, especially newer trainers, they script because they're worried they're not going to get it right, and then they have a tendency to read their script,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
which like,
Yeah. Which is
uh,
painful. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
painful, painful,
No.
painful.
No. No.
But I think we also, I think you really pointed out, like we kind of each have to do what works for us. Even
Yeah.
if you're handed a facilitator guide, like I would still want to put notes of my own,
Yeah.
and I would want to
Yeah.
make it my own. Um,
Yeah.
um,
Because
yeah,
that's
that's
how training is interesting. It's not interesting if you show up and somebody has a script and a predetermined deck and they are just reading, like, just send out the deck. We can all read. There's got to be some
right.
reason you're in front of that room or at that table. And so what is that purpose? And it doesn't have anything to do with the script or the words on the slide.
Exactly, exactly. It is all about the people. Like we have so many ways that we can get information to people and people can practice their jobs, that if we're taking the time and money to actually bring
Yeah.
people together virtually or in person, then we need to be honoring that group of people by going at their pace and giving them what
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
need, which isn't always what they think they need. There's a critical difference there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, give them the record
Give
it.
them a
Just
deck. Yeah. I
right,
think about that
exactly.
all the time. I mean, you too. I'm often in a room with 30 people and I think about like what is the dollar amount of the people's time that is in this room, and I want that to be
Exactly.
impactful. I don't care what the organization is. I don't want it to be a bad use of resources. You've got all these people who are being paid to be here. Let's make some impact. And it's actually one of the reasons I think I went out on my own, because I felt like that has been lost a little bit, in the sense of just ensuring that what you're doing with this group of people in this organization in this moment in time is impactful to whatever they're trying to achieve. Um, and that is lost in a lot of training. I think it's lost in a lot of our industry, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's why you see books like my friend Jess Almley's book, L&D Order Taker No More,
Yeah.
because there is frustration
Yeah.
that if we exist, that, somebody comes to you and says, I want, 2 hours of communication training. First of all, how did you come up with 2 hours?
Right.
Like, you pulled that out of your air.
They had a gap 6 months from now between 1 and 3 on a Tuesday. That's how they pulled it.
Exactly. So let's fill it
Yeah.
up with something
Yeah.
that I feel like was good. Or, my favorite, and I'm sure you experience this in organizations, that somebody goes to a conference or a meeting or some networking group, and somebody that they admire is like, oh, we just did a 2-hour communication training and it was so good. And they're like, oh, okay, I know what we're going to do now.
Right.
And
right.
like, what other part of organizations work that way? Like, imagine like in healthcare, ooh, I just really saw this great machine that they were using, so we should get it.
We should get it, and we should launch it tomorrow, right?
Right. I think when I train designing training, it's often my signature course for a long time has been this like big really extensive look at from analyzing training to evaluating and all the parts in between. And we call it for T. And people come in sometimes because they don't read the objectives beforehand. They come in thinking that it's all about facilitating training. And then, we spend the first 2 days talking about whether or not it's actually a training issue.
Yes.
And they're like, you're talking yourself out of your own profession.
Yes.
I'm like, well, yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, if you want this actually to have value, if you want people to value the work that we do, then you need to know that it's actually the work we should be doing.
Yes. And you're not going to solve whatever the problem if it's a management issue and you're just putting people in a 3-hour training. You're still going to have the management issue, but you're going to have 3 less hours of productivity. Yeah.
Right.
I remember when I was at UC Davis, I was in kind of a similar role to what I do now, but I was doing that for UC Davis, and an organization emailed or called or something, and like, we want to do training for physicians, which I was super excited about because that's my background as physician leadership development, and I love working with physicians. And it was an organization not in Sacramento, so I feel okay about sharing this. Could have been anywhere, people. And they said, we have a team of, leadership physician, or these team of leaders. They're all physicians. They just can't lead. They can't communicate, yada, yada. So I'm like, okay. So at the very beginning, I'm talking through like, what would success look like? What are behaviors? And I said, so, what are you thinking about? Are you thinking a longitudinal program? And he said, and I kid you not, we meet once a month for an hour. So I was thinking maybe like 15 minutes every month for this year. And I was like, I can't. I mean, probably the first time I've said no, I was like, I didn't even try to work with it. Like, I can't do anything with 15 minutes. I can't even drink a cup of coffee in 15 minutes, like, let alone like really try to work through some complicated. And I ended up saying like, I'm sorry, we can't help you, because I just didn't even feel like we were so far from each other. And I just didn't even feel like there was ever going to be a world where we were going to be able to connect. But it really gave me a window into some people's world of what they think it takes to strengthen leadership skills and to build a more cohesive team. And in like 15 minutes once a month.
Right. Imagine if you had said, like, you need to perform that surgery in 15 minutes.
Right. There's a new surgery, and we want you all to be sufficient to do it, and we're going to give you 15 minutes one time a month.
Think that'll be okay? Think you get it done?
Yeah. But, in all fairness, and I don't even remember if I've said this on this podcast, when we go to our higher education institutions and we learn our thing, there is nothing about people often, or not very much about people. And there's
Right.
not very much about how do we learn and how to retain information. And so it's kind of a foreign area for a lot of people. And I
Right.
get that. Like, so if you don't know and you haven't had that experience and no one has said, well, here's what it actually would take, maybe 15 minutes once a month sounds all right to you. Like, I don't know.
Well, and there are some instances that 15 minutes may be better than nothing.
That's true too. That is
But
true too.
let's be realistic about what that 15 minutes is going to look like and what it's going to do.
Yeah, going to create a more cohesive team that they're going to understand how to lead the physicians that report to them in a, it's just,
Right.
But yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't know how we got back to that as well, but I guess that's kind of the discovery, part of the discovery phase is figuring out,
Right.
but figuring out like, what are you trying to get or where do you want to go? And my brain works in logistics first. So I often want to go to like, well, tell me what kind of time commitment you're able to give, and tell me, how many people are we talking, and tell me, all those things. And then I can move towards the outcome and what we're looking at. And I know that's backwards for some people too. I'm guessing it's backwards for you. I don't know. Is that the opposite for you?
It's a little bit. I mean, I do sometimes we have to just do a little bit of like, what are your parameters and how are we going to make it fit? My ideal, and this happens more often with clients that I've had for a long time, is like, here are the competencies or the skills that you want. And so here's the time that's going to take.
Yeah.
Now let's figure out how to like put that in the year.
Yeah.
Versus the other way. But I think we also have to be flexible that it's not, we don't get to always write the rules
no,
here.
We don't. And I said, I was actually a guest on somebody's podcast earlier this week, and I will say, like, any organization who is willing to spend money to invest in their people is good by me. Like, I understand. I wish I could have 8 hours every other day. I don't know, whatever. But I get it. There's so many organizations that don't do anything to invest in their people, that even if you can only invest a little bit, maybe more than 15 minutes, but a little bit, I get it. Like, I get it. And I want to work with you. I want to make that happen, because there's so many conflicting priorities, especially in the government space right now.
Absolutely. And but let's make that work worthwhile. Let's make that work impactful, so that the next time we ask that leader to come to something to help them develop, they come knowing it's going to have value.
Yeah.
I think it's so easy to just deliver things that don't have value. And then we're cleaning up and trying to encourage people to take part in something that has value, but we have all of these skeletons, all of these things, hurdles, all of this convincing. It's my favorite comment from people when they're like, I didn't really want to be here because I didn't think it was valuable.
I know.
Because they've experienced so much that didn't have value, because they didn't start with the objectives of the workplace, because they didn't start with the performance on the job. They didn't start from that place. Sometimes because they didn't know better. Sometimes because maybe they didn't have time. I don't know.
It's funny.
Sometimes they only had 15 minutes.
They only had 15 minutes once a month. Yesterday, I was with a group, and at the end of the day, the woman came up to me and said, "Thank you so much. This was not only I was able to learn, but it was so interesting. The last time I went to a training, the person just read the words off the slide." And I'm like, yeah, I'm thank you. Like, first of all, thank you. Cause like, I love that kind of I love any feedback, but like that does definitely like, okay, I'm going to get up and do this another day. Right. But I think it's so common. It's so common. And so when they get to us, they just assume, I'm sure that woman was dreading yesterday because she assumed it was just going to be a long, boring, not helpful day.
Right.
And so while it is fun to surprise and delight people, I do wish that the expectations were just maybe a little higher and that they didn't have to go through the difficult ones, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. It would elevate our profession, first of all.
Exactly.
And I
Exactly.
think we'd stop wasting time and resources.
I agree. I agree. And then when,
Yeah.
you know, when they show up, they don't have to spend the mental energy thinking like, oh my gosh, it's going to be such a long slog. They can have some joy and excitement and looking forward to something, which frankly is difficult to come by for a lot of people in the workplace right now. So,
Absolutely.
anyways, so we've created a drug commercial today, and you can look for that in pharmacies near you.
I think it needs to have a truck in it.
I do backing up.
Backing up.
And the lady with the kite and the dog will look at the truck longingly.
PAFR is the way.
And now we will go back to our delirium in our day to day.
We've come full circle.
We've really come full circle. We've come full circle. This was a delight. I loved this conversation. So we will have to follow up this conversation with more about this conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there are lots of threads that we can pull from.
And so many different pharmaceuticals that we can create. And with that, we will sign off. That is your strategic pause for the day.
Thank you.